I was pouring a glass of bourbon in the kitchen when I heard the back door creak. At 2:17 a.m., in a house where nothing moved after 9. I didn't need to look at the clock. My body still runs like I'm in surveillance, always knowing the time, the sounds, the layout. She thought I was asleep. But I had been lying there for 3 hours, staring at the ceiling, knowing something was off. 50 years of marriage teaches you things. Her scent was still in the sheets, but not her warmth. She got up too quietly. I walked barefoot, silent like I used to when tailing suspects. The house was dark. The moonlight sliced through the hallway blinds, just enough to show movement in the living room. I stayed behind the wall. Listened. There were whispers. A low voice, male. Hers, too. Nervous, breathy. A giggle, short and soft like she was 30 again. Then the couch creaked. That specific creak it made when I stepped into the room. They froze. He had no shirt on. His belt was half unbuckled. Her dress was bunched at the thighs. She gasped and tried to cover herself with the throw blanket. He stood up. Younger than me by maybe 15 years. Still thick, big shoulders. I recognized him. Greg. My neighbor. My friend. Jack, she said, her voice breaking. It's not. Shut up. He took a step forward, probably thinking I'd yell or cry or collapse. He didn't know who I was. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. A photo of our grandkids fell and shattered. He tried to swing, but I caught his wrist midair and twisted. His knees buckled. You forgot to lock the door, I said into his face, cold. You stupid son of a bitch. Jack, she screamed. Please. Stop. I let go. He fell like a sack of bricks, groaning. I'm not gonna kill you, I said, adjusting my robe. You're not worth that. But I am gonna ruin you. Both of you. And then I walked upstairs, calm as if I were brushing my teeth. In the master bedroom, I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. I hadn't touched that file in 17 years. FBI badge. Old contacts. Names. Codes. Things she never knew. She married a government ghost. And now? Now he's coming back. The house was silent the next morning. No clinking of dishes. No smell of her cinnamon coffee. No Sunday paper folded just the way I liked it. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the ache in my jaw from clenching it all night. She didn't come upstairs. I didn't go down. By 7 a.m., I walked into the kitchen. She was there, in a robe, hands shaking as she held a mug. She looked like a stranger. Same gray curls. Same age spots on her neck. But her eyes? Empty. Caught. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said quietly. How long? Her lips parted, then closed. I waited. 3 years, she said. I nodded. 3 years with Greg. While I mowed his lawn. Fixed his damn mailbox. Sat next to him at your sister's funeral. I never stopped loving you. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. She thought that sentence would soften the blow. Like it was some bandage. I walked past her and opened the cabinet under the sink. Pulled out the hidden safe behind the trash bags. She watched me as I dialed the code and opened it. Jack, what are you doing? I pulled out the flash drive, the cash, the burner phone. 17 years ago, when I retired, I told her I burned everything. Truth is, I just buried it. In case the past ever came knocking. I'm going for a drive. Where? Somewhere you're not. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Her touch made my skin crawl. "You need to understand something," I said. "I gave you 50 years. I gave you everything I was. And you used that time to crawl into bed with the man who shook my hand every weekend. It wasn't like that?" "It was exactly like that." I left. Outside, the sky was gray, the kind of sky that doesn't move. The kind that sits on your shoulders like bad news. Greg's truck was gone, probably parked at the motel on Route 9. Coward. I got in my car and drove. An hour later, I pulled into a diner off the highway. Sat in the back booth. The waitress brought me black coffee and a plate of eggs I didn't order. I told her thanks. My appetite was gone, but I needed the normalcy. I pulled out the burner phone. Still charged. I powered it on and scrolled through the contacts. Names I hadn't looked at in years. I stopped at one. Vincent P., audio and surveillance. I tapped the number. 3 rings. VIN. Jack? It's time. Silence. Then a low chuckle. "I thought you were dead." "Not yet." "What's the job?" "Domestic." He whistled. "You? Mr. Honor and Vows? This must be serious. Send me the latest microcams. Motion sensors. GPS pins. The full kit. Address?" I gave it to him. "My own home. I'll have it there in 12 hours. I hung up and sipped the coffee. Still hot. Still bitter. I remembered our anniversary last year. 50 years. Golden. She'd cried when I gave her that necklace. The one she wore last night. When she was with him. I could have confronted Greg right there, choked him until he passed out, called the cops. But that would have been easy. And it wouldn't stick. People like him? They forget shame in a week. I wasn't interested in quick punishment. I wanted devastation. He ran a construction business. Had 2 adult sons. One of them just got into the sheriff's department. I knew how to ruin that. I could plant doubt. Drop anonymous complaints. Leak images. With the right angle, I could break his whole world. And hers along with it. By the time I got home, the house was empty. No note. No calls. Just her scent in the hallway. I didn't care where she went. Probably to her sister. Or to him. Let them feel safe for now. I opened the garage and started clearing space on the shelf behind my old workbench. Perfect line of sight to the living room. Another angle to the front door. A third to the stairs. I measured with string and mental geometry. Like I used to in the field. Precision. Cold. Purposeful. Later that night, Vin's package arrived. Black case. Everything labeled. I installed each piece slowly, like ritual. One under the lamp in the living room. One behind the photo frame in the hallway. One tiny mic taped under the counter where she always made calls. By midnight, the system was live. Audio. Video. Motion. They wouldn't know I was watching. But I was. And the next time Greg stepped foot in my house, I'd be ready. The first thing I saw on the camera feed was her shoes. The red ones. She hadn't worn those in years. They clicked on the tile as she came in, and for a second I imagined her walking in like nothing happened, like the past 72 hours hadn't torn the skin off everything we built. She was alone. She walked through the living room, stopped, looked around. Her posture was different. Shoulders hunched. Like guilt had weight. She sat on the couch. I watched from the monitor in my storage unit 6 miles away, a place no one would think to look. Not a soul knew about it. I used to stash field evidence there. Now it held folding chairs, dry food, and a mission. On screen, she pulled out her phone. I adjusted the audio feed. "I'm home," she whispered. "No, he's not here. He left." A pause. "No, he doesn't know you're the one who told me to get rid of the photos. I burned them." Another pause. "You're still coming tonight, right?" She smiled. That soft smile. The one I hadn't seen in years. She was talking to him. So that's how they played it. She was the bait, and he was coming back to mark territory. Like this was his home now. I wrote a note on the pad next to me. "Greg returning tonight. Set perimeter." By sunset, I was back at the house, in the garage. I knew her schedule. I knew his arrogance. He'd wait until dark. I placed a GPS tag under the flower pot by the porch. Another in the rear wheel well of Greg's truck when it showed up. He didn't notice. He never looked down. Most men don't. I stayed hidden behind the lattice panel of the deck, just out of sight. I could see into the living room through the corner of the window. They were drinking wine. Laughing. She leaned against him. He kissed her neck. It felt surgical, watching your own past get cut open in front of you. But I didn't blink. I hit record. I didn't need hours. I needed 10 seconds. Just enough for the right face angle, enough audio to identify names, dates, intimacy. Evidence. Pure and simple. Later that night, they went upstairs. I waited until the lights dimmed. Then I walked back to the truck, retrieved the tag log, and disappeared. In the storage unit, I copied the footage onto 3 drives. One went into a safety deposit box under a fake name. Another to a contact in digital forensics. The third I kept. Not for insurance. For precision. The next morning, I showed up at Greg's job site. He ran a small contracting company, interior remodels, decks, insulation. Mostly cash work, no paper trail. Sloppy. I parked across the street. Watched him shake hands with a client, a woman in her 40s, 2 kids in the car. Friendly. Too friendly. I took photos. No confrontation. Not yet. Instead, I waited until lunch break, walked up behind him as he leaned on a truck bed sipping iced tea. He didn't see me coming. "Greg," I said. He turned. Stiffened. "You need to leave," he said. "You made a mistake," I said calmly. "You don't scare me." I smiled. "Good. That'll make this easier." I handed him an envelope. Inside, a single printed frame from the video. His face. Her smile. The timestamp. His hands trembled as he read the note attached. "This is only the beginning. I got more," I said. "Much more. And I haven't decided yet if I want your sons to see it. Or the licensing board." "You wouldn't. You've known me 20 years. You tell me." He tried to puff up. "You're a bitter old man." "No," I said. "I'm a retired agent with time, skills, and nothing left to lose." I turned and walked away. Let him stew. Let the fear bloom slow. That night, I returned home. She was there. Waiting. "Where were you?" she asked. "Out." "With who?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's rich." She swallowed hard. "I made a mistake." "Correction," I said. You made a choice. For 3 years. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't care. Not anymore. Not after seeing her in his arms, in our house, in our bed. She tried to reach for me. I stepped back. I'm not here for closure, I said. I'm here for control. And I went to bed. Not to sleep. To plan. I woke before dawn. Not from noise, not from dreams. Just instinct. It's something that never goes away. You wake up when the mission tells you to. She was still asleep in the other room. I'd made that clear. 2 rooms. 2 lives. No conversation. I made coffee. Black. No sugar. Opened the blinds just enough to let in the early light. Then I pulled out the file I'd started, Greg's life, or at least what was visible of it. Company details. Social media. Tax slips. Family. I paused at the photo of his younger son, Tyler. 28. Sheriff's deputy. Clean record. Rising star. He looked nothing like Greg. Thin, sharp, clean-cut. The type that still believed in law, in legacy. He posted about his father often. Good. That meant there was trust. And where there's trust, there's leverage. I waited 3 days. No calls from her. No movement from Greg. Probably told her to lay low. But I knew pride wouldn't let him stay quiet for long. On Thursday morning, I drove to the sheriff's station in the next town over. Walked in like I belonged there. Some things you don't forget: how to carry yourself, how to make people look twice without asking questions. Tyler was at the front desk, talking to another officer. He turned when he saw me. "Can I help you, sir?" I smiled. "You Greg's boy?" His eyes narrowed. "Depends on who's asking. Someone he owes an apology." That got his attention. "Let's take a walk." We stepped outside. The morning was crisp. A flag snapped in the wind above us. "You got a minute?" I asked. He nodded. "Make it quick." I pulled out an envelope and handed it to him. He hesitated. Opened it. Inside, 2 printed screenshots from the hidden camera. Not graphic, but unmistakable. His father. My wife. My living room. He didn't say anything for 10 seconds. Then. "What is this?" "Evidence. Of something you probably didn't know. You some kind of private investigator?" "Used to be something like that. Now I'm just a man who lost everything." His face turned red. Not from anger. From shame. "I don't need to see this," he said, handing the envelope back. "Yes, you do. Because if I wanted to destroy your father, I could. I've got enough to end his career, his business, his name. But I'm not here to do that. Not yet." "Then why come to me?" "Because you're the only part of him that's still decent. And because I want you to understand who he is." Tyler stared at the envelope. 3 years, I said. "That's how long they've been lying. In my house. While I hosted dinners. While I fixed your dad's roof. That's who he is." He didn't speak. I turned to leave. "You going to go public?" "Not if I don't have to. I can't stop him." "I don't need you to." And then I left. I didn't expect him to do anything. But I knew the image would stay with him. Every family dinner. Every call from his father. That picture would live in his head. That was enough for now. That evening, she tried to talk. "Jack, please. I can't take this anymore. You had no trouble taking him. Her eyes flared. You think this is easy for me? You think I planned any of this? No, I said. You just executed it. I made a mistake. You keep using that word like it was one night. Like you tripped and fell on him. I loved you. And you still chose him. She started to cry. I didn't flinch. You want sympathy? I said. Then go cry on his couch. But I'm not the man who's going to comfort you anymore. She stormed out of the room. Let her. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Tyler, sitting at a diner, envelope in hand, staring out the window. No message. Just the image. Vin was watching. I'd asked him to keep tabs. Just in case. It meant the message landed. And now, Greg would feel pressure from both ends, me and his son. That's how you break men like him. You don't confront them. You isolate them. You make them feel surrounded. And we were just getting started. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence, of measured glances over coffee, of her moving through the house like a ghost. 2 weeks of Greg not setting foot near our street. He was smart enough to stay away. But not smart enough to stay quiet. The cameras still rolled. I reviewed the footage every night, just to make sure. No visits. No messages. But her phone buzzed often. She didn't talk when I was in the room. But I knew the pattern. Women don't just quit emotional connections overnight. She was holding onto something. Waiting. I didn't stop her. I needed her to feel safe. To believe the storm passed. Meanwhile, I moved to phase 2. Greg's contracting business had a small office in a strip mall next to a vape shop and a dry cleaner. He wasn't there every day, he let his secretary handle most paperwork. But I didn't need him there. I needed records. So I walked in, dressed like any other client. Can I help you? The woman asked. Late 30s, too much perfume, glasses she didn't need. I'm looking for a remodel. Thinking of redoing my basement. Greg around? She smiled. He's off-site, but I can get you on the calendar. That'd be great. While she typed, I casually glanced around. Photos on the wall. Greg shaking hands with clients. One caught my eye, him with a city inspector. That gave me an idea. She handed me a card. He's usually back by Thursday. You want me to call you? No need. I'll come back. I left. Went straight to my contact list. Called an old acquaintance, retired city permit officer with a drinking problem and a loose mouth. Hey, Russ. It's Jack. Damn, haven't heard that voice in a decade. You back in the game? Just paying off old debts. You still know folks in zoning? A few. Why? I need eyes on a contractor named Greg Harmon. Works under Harmon Home Improvements. I want every permit is filed in the past 5 years. And any complaints. He laughed. What's in it for me? I'll fix your credit card fraud situation. You still got those skills? I've got better. All right. Give me 48 hours. I hung up. By that evening, I had a flash drive with a dump of Greg's business files. Russ was faster than expected. Inside were 3 denied permits, 2 OSHA violations, and a half-dozen customer complaints never followed up. Plenty of loose nails. The next day, I drafted a letter. Anonymous. Detailed. Attached screenshots of the permit violations, customer statements, and a few images of unsafe job sites, all from public access or from Russ's archives. Then I printed 10 copies. I mailed them to 3 potential clients Greg had lined up, addresses taken from his Yelp reviews and booking calendar. I mailed one to the state licensing board, one to the local news tip line, one to Tyler's department. And the last one? I left it in Greg's mailbox. No return address. I wanted him to see it with trembling hands. To sweat over who knew what. To imagine every conversation turning against him. Later that week, I got what I wanted. I was watching the front camera when his truck pulled up. He didn't come to the door. Just stood outside, fists clenched. He looked at the house like it was mocking him. Then he threw the letter onto the porch and drove off without a word. She found it 30 minutes later. Read it. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stared out the window for a long time. I watched her, wondering what she was thinking. Was she regretting it? Doubtful. Was she scared? Probably. Good. That night, she approached me. First time in days. I think Greg's in trouble. I said nothing. She sat across from me. You did something, didn't you? Still nothing. Her voice dropped. This isn't justice, Jack. This is obsession. I looked up at her. You think this is about revenge? You think I care about getting even? Then what is it? It's about consequence, I said. For every time I shook his hand. For every lie you fed me over Sunday dinner. You brought war into my house. Now I'm fighting it the only way I know how. She stood up, shaking her head. You've changed. No, I said. You just never knew who I really was. She left the room. And I went back to my files. Tomorrow would be phase 3. The email went out at 3:12 a.m. No name, no traceable server, routed through 3 continents. I had set it up years ago, for emergencies. I never thought I'd use it for something this personal. The subject line was simple, a home contractor with a dirty history. The recipient was a small-time investigative journalist named Colleen Page. She ran a local blog, nothing major, but she had a reputation for sniffing out fraud, especially when it involved veterans and seniors. Perfect. Attached were documents, permit violations, safety complaints, the image of Greg shaking hands with the city inspector who'd been fined last year for bribery. I included a short note, if you want the full story, look into Harmon Home Improvements. Ask around. And check who signs his safety waivers. Then I waited. By sunrise, the town would begin to whisper. I sat at the dining table sipping coffee while the woman I once called my wife stirred oatmeal. She didn't look at me. She hadn't said a word since accusing me of obsession. Good. Silence was cleaner than lies. At 9:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Vin. She's biting. Meeting Greg at the lake cabin. Noon. The lake cabin. Of course. They thought they were clever. That was the place I had helped Greg renovate as a surprise for his own wife before she passed. I knew every creak of its floorboards, every angle of its windows. I also knew there was no cell service and only one road in or out. I grabbed my keys. Before leaving, I placed a small black pouch on the nightstand in the guest room, hers now. Inside it was a necklace. The same one I gave her on our 50th anniversary. The one she wore while he kissed her. Let her find it. Let her wonder why it was there. By 11:10 a.m., I was parked behind a line of trees, half a mile from the cabin. I used binoculars from my glove box, old military grade, still sharp. Through the leaves, I saw his truck. Her car. Both parked side by side like they were playing house. I watched for 40 minutes. They laughed on the deck. He poured wine. She touched his arm. It wasn't lust anymore. It was comfort. Like they'd already decided I was history, a chapter closed. Like I never existed. I recorded 27 minutes of footage. Then I left. I didn't need confrontation. I needed patience. By the time I got home, the story was already live. Local contractor accused of permit fraud and endangering clients. The blog post was detailed. Colleen had done her homework. She found clients willing to talk. 2 even gave interviews. Photos of Greg's job sites, one half-finished deck collapsed under its own weight. Comments flooded in, neighbors, former clients, trolls. It spread fast. Not viral, but strong. Small towns love scandal more than justice. I waited until dusk to take the next step. That night, I placed a call using a voice filter, just enough distortion to mask tone, but still human. Sheriff's Department. "Hi," I said, voice neutral. "I think one of your deputies may want to know his father's being investigated for permit fraud. Check the blog or Truth in Timber." Then I hung up. Let Tyler connect the dots. Let Greg feel the news tighten. At midnight, she came into the living room. "People are calling Greg's phone nonstop," she said. I didn't look up. "They are accusing him of things. Clients are canceling." Still silence. She stepped closer. "Did you do this?" I turned the page in my book. "You going to destroy his life?" I finally looked at her. "And?" Her lips trembled. "This isn't justice." "No," I said. "It's consequence. You're not the man I married." "That's true," I said. "He died the night you invited your lover into our home." She stood there for a moment longer. Then turned and left the room. The next morning, Greg's business Yelp page was down. His website had a banner that read, "And we are currently undergoing restructuring." Which is corporate language for panic. Tyler didn't show up at the station that day. VIN confirmed it. Probably called in sick. Or shame. Step by step, it was working. And I wasn't even done yet. The letter arrived 3 days later. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address. But I knew who sent it the second I saw the shaky handwriting on the front. Carol Harmon. Greg's daughter-in-law. I sat at the kitchen table and opened it slowly. Inside were 3 pages, handwritten. Careful cursive. The kind people don't use anymore. She wrote about how she found the story online. How Tyler came home in silence, dropped his badge on the counter, and didn't speak for an hour. She said Greg hadn't returned her calls. That her youngest son cried when he overheard a classmate say, "Your grandpa's a fraud." She didn't ask if it was true. She already knew. She ended the letter with one sentence, "You didn't just take him down, Mr. Lawrence, you unmade him." I folded the letter and slid it into the drawer next to the forks. That evening, she came into the kitchen again. My wife. Still my wife, technically. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face pale. "Greg is thinking about leaving town." I stirred my tea. "He's being followed. He got a call from a client saying he should watch his back." Sounds like someone's reputation finally caught up to them. She took a step closer. "Are you trying to make him disappear?" I looked at her. "If I wanted him gone, he'd be gone. I don't want him gone. I want him humiliated." Her mouth fell open a little. "You're destroying everything." I leaned forward. "Good. Because that's what you did to me. Piece by piece. Whisper by whisper. Night by night. She sat down. I never meant to hurt you like this. No one ever means it. But they still do it. And then they look surprised when the fire burns hot. She dropped her gaze. I want a divorce, I said. Her breath caught. I'm filing on Monday. I've already spoken to a lawyer. She didn't respond. Just stared at the table. I could see the cracks spreading behind her eyes. And before you start with the crying, I said, understand this, I'm not doing it because I can't forgive you. I'm doing it because I finally remembered who I was before I spent 50 years being your damn security blanket. She nodded slowly. I deserve better than this, I said. And so do the years I have left. She stood. What if I leave him? I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. Sharp. Bitter. Then you'll be alone. Because I'm not your plan B. She left the room without another word. That night, I emailed divorce papers to my attorney. Everything was already prepared. She wouldn't get the house. She wouldn't get my pension. I had protected it years ago, in a trust she didn't even know existed. She'd be fine. But she wouldn't live well. Not like before. That was the point. The next morning, I took a walk to clear my head. The leaves were turning, red and brittle. Fall always brought clarity. Maybe it's the cold air. Or maybe it's because death feels closer. I stopped by the cemetery. Not for anyone specific. Just habit. There's something about graves that puts things in perspective. 50 years. That's how long I gave her. 50 birthdays. 50 winters. 50 mornings where I brought her coffee before I even brushed my teeth. And now? Now she was just another mistake I had to clean up. I walked home slowly. When I got back, I found her in the garage. She was holding the necklace. The one I left for her days ago. The one she wore when she cheated. The one I gave her as a symbol of everything she threw away. I don't deserve this, she said. No, I replied. You don't. She opened her hand, let it fall onto the workbench. It made a soft, empty sound. Then she walked past me, back into the house, not saying a word. The camera above the garage door blinked once. Still recording. Just in case. Always. It started with a voicemail. Unknown number. Woman's voice. Shaky, hesitant. Mr. Lawrence, this is Angela Barrett. I used to work at the OB/GYN clinic in Roanoke, early 90s. You probably don't remember me, but I think you should know something. It's about your son, Andrew. She left a callback number. I stared at the phone for a long time. Andrew. My youngest. 36 years old. Lives in Colorado. Married. 2 kids. We talk every few weeks. He calls me Pop, always did. Even when he was a teenager and hated everyone else. I hit redial. She picked up on the second ring. I'm sorry to bother you, she said immediately. But I've thought about this for years. And now that I'm retired, my conscience. Speak, I said. She took a breath. I handled a paternity screening back in '87. Discreet case. Your wife was pregnant, but she came in alone. She requested a private test. I wasn't supposed to keep the file, but I did. It was strange. She listed your name but said she wanted confirmation. I closed my eyes. Result was negative. You weren't the biological father. Silence. A heavy, brutal silence. I thought you should know, she said. I hung up. The world didn't spin. It stopped. For 36 years, I raised a boy who wasn't mine. Loved him. Taught him to ride a bike. Sat through his asthma attacks. Paid for his wedding. Held his firstborn. And all that time, she knew. She let me look into that boy's face and believe. It wasn't just betrayal. It was decades of deception, so deep it rewrote history. I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, I walked into the garage. Sat at the bench. The necklace still lay there, where she left it. I picked it up, stared at it, then dropped it into the trash can without a word. She came in 20 minutes later, still in her robe. Her face looked older now. The guilt had aged her more than time ever did. "What happened?" she asked. "Angela Barrett called me." Her face went blank. I watched her. No emotion. Just waited. She told me about the paternity test. She sat down slowly. Didn't deny it. "You knew?" I asked. She nodded once. "For how long?" "Since before he was born." I exhaled through my nose. Not a sigh. Something harder. "And you let me believe. You loved him. You were a better father than his real one ever would have been." "Who?" Her lips tightened. "It doesn't matter." "Yes," I said. "It does." She looked away. "You wouldn't remember him. He was just someone I worked with. One time." "One time?" I repeated. She nodded. I laughed. Not out of humor. Just disbelief. "You made a fool out of me. For decades." "I was scared," she whispered. "You were selfish." Tears welled up, but I didn't flinch. "I gave you everything," I said. "And you paid me in silence and strangers' bloodlines." "He is your son," she said. "No," I replied. "He's not. He's yours. And his." I was just the man stupid enough to show up. She tried to reach out. I stood. "If you have a shred of decency left, you won't speak to me again." She froze. "I want you out of this house by Sunday." Her lips trembled. "Where would I go?" "I don't care." I walked out. Later that day, I called Andrew. We talked like always. Normal. Routine. I asked about the kids. He said the youngest got Student of the Month. I told him I was proud. And I meant it. Because no matter what that test said, I'd still take a bullet for that boy. But that didn't mean I'd forgive her. Some sins are too old to clean. That night, I burned the photo albums. Not out of rage. Just necessity. A controlled purge. She watched from the window. Didn't say a word. And when the fire finally died, I didn't feel lighter. I felt ready. The invitations were simple. No dramatic wording. Just a text message to each of my children and grandchildren, a family dinner at the house. Sunday. 6 p.m. Be there. They didn't ask questions. They never had to. I was the rock of this family. When I called, people came. She knew something was coming. She could feel it. She moved through the house like someone counting steps before a storm. Tried to make small talk, tried to ask what I was planning. I didn't answer. I simply told her to dress well. At exactly 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. Andrew arrived first, wife in hand, 2 kids trailing behind. His smile was soft, concerned. He hugged me like nothing had changed. Like the last few days hadn't cracked my entire history in half. Then came Claire and Michael, my eldest daughter and middle son. They brought wine, tried to act cheerful. I welcomed them all like I always did. Calm. Strong. Polite. She wore blue. A dress I hadn't seen in years. Probably trying to rewind time, hoping nostalgia would undo truth. It wouldn't. The table was set perfectly. Roast beef, potatoes, corn, salad. No one asked why I cooked myself. They knew I did my best thinking with a knife in my hand. We Saturday. Laughed a little. For 20 minutes, it almost felt like nothing had happened. And then I stood. Fork down. Napkin folded. I've asked you all here because this will be the last time we sit at this table together as a family. Silence. Andrew looked confused. Claire froze, a bite halfway to her mouth. Michael's eyes narrowed. I continued. For the past few months, I've been living a lie. Well, longer than that. For the past 3 decades, to be exact. I looked straight at Andrew. You're not my biological son. The room inhaled as one. He blinked. What? She had a paternity test when you were still in the womb. I found out last week. He looked at her. Is that true? She said nothing. But her face told everything. I raised you, I said. And I'll always be proud of the man you became. But you deserve to know who you are. Even if it breaks both of us. His wife put a hand on his knee. He didn't move. And that's not all, I said. I turned to Michael, then Claire. For the past 3 years, your mother has been in a relationship with Greg Harmon. A neighbor. Family friend. One of the men I trusted most in this world. Claire gasped. Michael stared at her. That Greg? From the lake? I nodded. She brought him into our home. Into my bed. Into the family circle. And she lied about it. Every single day. Now she spoke. Jack, please. No, I snapped. You don't speak now. I looked back at them. I've filed for divorce. She's leaving this house. And if any of you think for 1 second that I'll soften, you don't know me as well as you thought. Andrew looked sick. Claire had tears running down her face. Michael stood. Jesus, Mom. Seriously? She reached for him. I didn't mean. Stop, he said coldly. And for the first time in my life, I saw all of them look at her like I had days ago, and not with hate, but with disappointment so deep it silenced the room. I placed a USB drive in the center of the table. That contains everything, I said. Footage, conversations, evidence. If you want to know the truth, it's yours. But it's not required. You've already seen enough. I picked up my coat. I won't be living here anymore. I'll be staying elsewhere until the divorce is finalized. After that, we'll see. Andrew stood. Pop. I don't care about blood. You're still my father. I nodded. I know. And I love you for it. But I needed you to know the truth. All of you. Michael hugged me. Claire too. Their kids looked on, quiet, uncertain. This wasn't the family gathering they'd expected. But it was the one they'd remember for the rest of their lives. As I walked out the front door, she followed. Where will you go? I turned. Somewhere you're not. And then I left. I didn't check into a hotel. I went somewhere better. 15 miles outside of town, tucked between 2 ridgelines, sat a cabin I built with my own hands before the kids were born. Back then it was a place for fishing weekends, bourbon, and silence. Over time it became a storage shed. Forgotten. Until now. It took me half an hour to unlock the gate and sweep the dust off the floor. Another hour to light the fireplace, open the windows, and let the cold mountain air wash out the smell of neglect. I didn't need much. Just space, quiet, and time to think. By morning, I felt like a man again. Not a husband. Not a father. Just a man. Clear-headed. Focused. Alone, but not empty. That week, I received 2 messages. One from Vin, Greg tried to sue the blogger. Got thrown out in pre-trial. His business account was frozen for back taxes. IRS flagged him. His house is for sale. I smiled. Quiet, satisfied. I didn't need to see it. Just hearing it was enough. The other message was from my lawyer. The divorce is finalized. Assets split as planned. House is yours. She signed everything. No contest. She didn't even fight. Maybe she was too ashamed. Or maybe she knew she'd already lost everything that mattered. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove into town that Friday. Parked outside a small bookstore near the university. Walked in. The chime above the door sang soft and pleasant. She was at the counter, thumbing through inventory lists. Brown hair in a bun. Reading glasses. Warm smile. Caroline. We met 3 years ago. Back when I volunteered at a veterans literacy event. We'd spoken a dozen times since. Nothing ever flirtatious. Just kind words. Good energy. Steady. She looked up. Jack Lawrence? I nodded. She smiled. It's been a while. I needed a quiet place to clear my head. Well, she said, this is the right place. We talked for 10 minutes. Nothing heavy. Nothing planned. Just 2 people reconnecting over shared silence. Before I left, she handed me a book. No charge, she said. Just read it. I nodded. Maybe next time, I'll buy you coffee. I'd like that, she said. I walked out, not with a new love story in my pocket, but with something better. A door. Possibility. Back at the cabin, I sat by the fire and reread the final divorce papers. They were dry, clinical. Name. Date. Signatures. Legal closure to an emotional war. But closure all the same. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon. Same kind I poured on the night everything fell apart. Only this time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was clean. I sat on the porch as the wind picked up, rustling the trees, shaking the last brittle leaves off their branches. Nature, doing what I'd done, letting go of what had already died. I pulled out a small box. Inside was the original wedding ring I gave her. I held it one last time. Then tossed it into the fire. Watched it glow, melt, disappear. She had called once since the dinner. I let it go to voicemail. No point in answering ghosts. The message was short. Her voice broken, quiet. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know how to live with what I did. I never responded. Some people don't deserve answers. And some questions are better left unanswered. 3 days later, I packed a small bag, locked up the cabin, and headed toward the state line. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't leave a note. Somewhere out there, a new town was waiting. New air. New routine. New chapter. Not because I needed to escape, but because I earned the right to begin again. And when people asked where I came from, I'd smile and say, somewhere I should have left a long time ago. Then I'd raise my glass. And never speak her name again.